Welcome to Spirit Portal, a podcast with me, Erika Anderson. I'm an evidential medium and a spiritual seeker, always on a quest to more deeply understand the magic and mystery of this universe. Join me in an exploration of the realms, both seen and unseen. I'll share my insights and be joined by inspiring guests with their own unique perspectives on living in this quantum, magical universe. Welcome back to Spirit Portal. Thank you for being here with me today. It is Erika, and I'm your host, and I'm so glad you're here. And I have to say, I have been swimming in the river that's outside of my house, and I'm having a glass of wine, and I have had all these things on my mind that I wanted to talk about for the podcast. And so I just thought, well, heck, I'm here alone. I might as well record and talk to my friends out there in the listening world. I hope you guys are good. I have just a bunch of different things I want to talk about today. And yeah, so I'm just going to get into it, and hopefully you find it interesting or helpful. I've been doing a lot of readings lately, and it's been really great. I just love connecting with people, especially after I take a break. And I had taken a break for a while for a bunch of different things that were going on. Not like a long break, but like a week. You know, there's always like the nervous excitement about coming back and starting up readings again, even after a little break, because I'm used to just doing it all the time. I just had so many great clients, and I wanted to talk about two different clients I had in one day. And it was so cute to me because they were both these beautiful people and beautiful clients. And one, I just went through and had this beautiful mediumship reading. Just all these loved ones were coming through, and it was just really powerful and potent. And this client that I'd met for the first time told me at the end that they were listeners of the podcast. And I just thought that was so cool. And then that person said that they thought that I was a badass bitch. And I loved it so much. I can't even tell you how good it feels to have someone call you a badass bitch, especially someone like me. And yeah, I just loved it. And then the next reading I had, actually, it wasn't a reading. It was a mentorship session with someone from a long time ago. And that person was like saying how they just needed some Erika Anderson time. They needed some airy fairy time or hippy dippy. I can't remember which one they said, but you know, in essence, it was the same thing. And I was laughing, and I was telling my husband later, I was like, oh my God, you know, I had all these readings today and a mentorship today. And one person called me a badass bitch, and the other person called me an airy fairy hippie. And he was laughing. He's like, well, you're obviously both. And I was like, yeah, I am that, and so much more. And it really just kind of made me think about mediumship and how we make mediumship so hard for ourselves sometimes, because as mediums, or really I'm talking to the students in this one, often we start connecting with a person in spirit, and we want to put them in a category, or we want to reduce them into like one aspect of their character as to who they are. And I think that this is just kind of a reminder that we as people are unbelievably complex. One person sees me as a badass bitch, and another person sees me as an airy fairy hippie, and I am both. And if and when I die and I come to my loved ones in spirit through a medium, the medium who is, you know, going to be the communicator for me, their job is not to reduce me to only one of those. Their job is to get to know me through our conversation, you know, me as the spirit and them as the medium, as a complex person that I am. And that's what mediumship is. And so often in development as students, we get locked in on one aspect of someone's character, one aspect of who they are, and we're missing this whole picture of who they are. And so if you're a developing medium, I'm just thinking that the less we try to imagine who they are, the more accurately we actually get them. The more information that comes through, and we stop trying to imagine, when we stop trying to paint the picture, but we let spirit make us the canvas, right? They share with us and we share with our clients. And so, yeah, that's where I wanted to start today, with that realization of, well, how would, it's so great when someone calls me an airy fairy hippy dippy, and it's so great when someone calls me a badass bitch, and I'm going to own both of them because I love both of them. But when my husband's like, yeah, you are that, and I was like, no, I'm so much more too. And I really just wanted to think about that. Like, again, if you're a developing medium, how would you paint the picture of your own story? What would you want your loved ones to hear from their medium about who you were? What would they recognize, right? And what one person recognizes as a truth about who you are is just one part of a very beautiful picture. And it's so easy. It's so easy in life to make assumptions. I remember one time, I don't even know where I can point this back to, but I heard once that assumptions are the lowest form of knowledge. Assumptions are the lowest form of knowledge. And I have held that in the back of my head since I was a teenager. I was probably like 13 when I heard that. And I really, really believe that's true. And it's gotten me through a lot of binds with friends. Like, don't assume the worst about people. Don't assume the best about people, right? To just let people explain the story of who they are to you in real time, and you respond based on what's actually happening versus the story in your head. And as a medium, it's the same thing. There's a danger in trying to like figure out a person in spirit instead of receiving the information from them, right? And so as a medium, we want to let the evidence build the person rather than building that person in your mind. And that's going to help you as a medium because you're going to keep a doorway open for surprises. And that's the best thing about being a human, in my opinion, is how other humans surprise me. Especially when it's good surprises, the bad surprises are not so happy, but the good surprises of humanity is like one of the most beautiful blessings to be alive. And you have to be awake for that. You have to notice the beauty. You have to want to experience it to receive it, right? And so the same thing goes in mediumship. Let people in spirit surprise you because they are surprising. Just because someone was a murderous gangster who shot up people and robbed stores doesn't mean that he wasn't absolutely a million times over devoted son who had the biggest soft spot for children. You know what I mean? And so you have to let people in spirit surprise you. Just like we say that a book doesn't tell the cover. Wait, you know what I'm trying to say. So just remember that we make assumptions about living people. We make assumptions about spirit people. Neither of them are good. Let people tell you their story through their actions. Let people tell you their story through their words and their body language. Let people unravel their story for you in a mediumship reading if you're a developing medium or a professional medium. You know, one thing that I was talking about to one of my classes the other day, hold on, I'm going to have a sip of my drink. There is ice in it because it's like 98 degrees. Don't call me trashy. Anyways, when I started developing as a medium, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know it was like incredibly weird for me that it was all coming about. And often I was in my car doing practice readings on people. I would put my phone on speaker. I didn't have Zoom. It was at the very beginning of COVID, and there was no in-person anything. And all of a sudden I have spirit showing up in my bedroom and I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? I need to figure this out. And, I start my classes in mediumship right away. And I'm on my speakerphone. I'm doing readings on my speakerphone. I never, ever saw my practice partners. I never saw people that volunteered to sit for me. And what that did for me is it helped me learn how to trust information without any visual cues. I had no one that I could see if their arms were crossed. I had no one that I could see if they were crying. I didn't know if people were smiling. I had no idea what was going on except the information I was getting from spirit, and I would say it. And that was one of the most valuable parts of my development that I can share with you, that there is something incredibly powerful about not seeing the person you're reading for. When I started doing Zoom readings at a certain point, I started seeing faces. And in that, I had to, well, actually, I'll go back a little bit. I started judging the faces I was seeing. Oh, this person is too young to have a parent in spirit. This person couldn't possibly have a child in spirit. Or this person is old. It must be like their parents that are coming forward in spirit, right? And that makes readings harder. And it was such a great learning experience for me to go back into my mind, into the mental state of where I was when I was doing phone readings in my car, parked on the side of the street because I had kids at home and I couldn't do readings with my kids at home because they were too crazy. And I was like, oh, I need to go back into the place of assuming nothing about anyone that sits in a chair across from me, or on a screen across from me, or in a phone in my ear. Like, assumption is the lowest form of knowledge. And we cannot assume anything as a medium. You can't assume anything about your client ever. And you can't assume anything about people in spirit, or else you are making the reading judgmental and through your mind. And in-person readings, oh my God, this was crazy. So I developed my mediumship for, I don't know, however long I did. And then when I was getting really confident in my abilities and confident in the clarity and confident in my abilities not to harm people, but to only offer healing, I started reading professionally. And people wanted in-person readings. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do in-person readings? Because I'd only been doing readings online or on the phone, most of the time not seeing people. And I was like, what's it going to be like when I do an in-person reading? Am I going to be able to do it? I remember being so freaking nervous for my in-person readings. And that was another great step in my learning and my development, because when you sit down as a medium and you're going to do in-person readings with someone and you haven't done any in-person readings throughout your entire development, all of a sudden I was feeling psychic energy. I would sit down in a room with someone and I'd be completely bulldozed by psychic energy, by their energy, by feeling my client. And I had to learn so unbelievably quickly how to separate my client's energy from the spirit communicator. And this is one of the most important aspects of mediumship for all of you students. You have to know the difference of communicating with a person in spirit from reading someone's energy across from you. There is an ethical and a moral and a valuable knowing of the difference, because it's very different to get insight from a person in spirit who can see everything to getting insight from a human being across from you that carries a certain energy or memory or experience in their field. And gosh, in-person readings became so amazing, because that's then when I started doing a ton of psychic readings. And because once I learned the difference, I was like, oh my God, I love doing psychic readings. Like, it's so wonderful to read people's energy, and it's so different than mediumship. And it also led me to another level of growth, another level of discernment. And Every stage of development, I guess this is my whole point in the whole, ramble on that I'm doing right now, is that each stage of development asks us and shows us ways to trust even more ways to feel more deeply, more ways to see more clearly, more ways to become more discerning, and more ways to become less judgmental or assumptive. I don't know if assumptive is a word. Assuming. Okay. So sometimes we feel so connected when we're doing readings, and sometimes we feel like we're getting absolutely nothing. And I just want to speak to that for a second, because it is something that comes up for every single medium I've ever known or talked to. Okay. You are not special. It's not just you that feels like a failure. Happens to everyone. And I just want to say that those difficult periods are difficult because of the stories you're telling yourself around them, not because they're bad for you. Okay. So if you can tell yourself a different story, you're going to recognize that it's not difficult. Spirit is removing old ways of working so that new ways of thinking, feeling, experiencing, processing can emerge. And if you get out of your pity party about how it's so difficult, and I'm saying this from a place of love and compassion because I had many a pity party myself. But if you can get out of your own way, you can surrender to the experience. And if you listen to my podcast on a regular basis, then you would know that, again, Spirit doesn't want us always searching. They want us being, right? They want us to be with them. So maybe you can stop searching in those difficult periods and be with your spirit so that you can be with others in spirit. I have talked about how I've had a lot of mentors on my process. One of the ways that I am in my life is when I want to do something, I want to do it really fucking well. And I dive in head first and I just go for it. And it's not how I was when I was younger, because when I was younger, I was so afraid of failure that I mostly didn't try for anything. I was dyslexic. I definitely think I have some neurodivergence in me, and I've never been tested, so I don't know. But except for dyslexia, I guess that is neurodivergence. And I didn't know I was dyslexic. I just was so afraid of failing because I was so confused all the time on the insides that I wouldn't try. And I really skated by in a lot of areas in my life. But with mediumship and my later years in life, and I'm saying that cheekily because I'm still in my middle years. I'm not. So in my later at some point in my adult life, I started trying again. And this was, especially during my spiritual awakening. And in the trying, I realized how capable I was and how deserving I was and how heart-centered I was. And I really became someone who liked themselves. And I highly encourage you, if you're not someone that likes yourself, become someone that likes yourself, because you deserve it, you've earned it, and you should own the beauty that you are. And there's a journey there for you. But okay, so Spirit keeps teaching us trust. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is I've talked about how I had so many different mediumship teachers. Wow, that was a tangent. And I had one teacher who really was very different than me, that only saw me as airy fairy and hippy dippy and didn't see me as anything else, even though I was giving unbelievable readings. And this teacher was always trying to kind of put me down in class or embarrass me or, just push my buttons. Or I could see actively that this teacher was trying to make me feel judged. It was just something that I was aware of, the awareness in it. And I have to say, one of the coolest things ever was being in that class, in those classes, and not caring. I didn't care. And it was such a sign for me for my own self, for my own growth, of feeling like, I really don't care that you're judging me right now. I'm going to read for a person here, and I'm going to read and talk to people in spirit in front of this group, even though you're like acting the way you're acting to me, and I'm going to do it. And I did. And through that experience of just like, oh, I'm just going to do my work and show up, and you can do all the things you want and say all the things you want, but I am a good medium, and I know that, and I am going to just continue to building my skills and expanding my abilities. And what happened in that class was the opposite, or maybe it was this person's intention, this teacher's intention was to test me to see how confident I was. But that class and those classes strengthened my abilities. And so if I had taken classes with that person at the beginning of my development, it probably would have crushed me. Probably would have crushed me, because I hadn't gone through this journey of feeling connected and feeling like I'm getting nothing, and going through those periods of time and learning to grow through them, and to trust spirit, and to work with spirit, and to know that this is a path for me. And because like this person I do more advanced development classes with, just to keep my skills growing and building, at this stage of my game, I don't care. I almost think it's fun. I'm like, ooh, what's this person going to say to me today? Because I'm just going to like do my job. I'm just going to show up and do my readings. And so it kind of leads me into the next part of what I want to talk about, which I have talked about before. But when you're ready to read professionally, it's not because everything's perfect, and it's not because you never doubt yourself, and it's not because you're amazing and everyone tells you that. It's when you trust the process. It's when you know that you can build an honest connection no matter what is going on around you, or who is looking at you, or if you feel like you can let go enough that you don't need to make things fit or make sense, but you're going to say it anyways. And that is such an important part. If you can't own your reading, you shouldn't be charging for it yet. So can you avoid filling in the gaps? Can you avoid making things fit? Can you be honest if you don't have a strong connection? Can you trust spirit enough to let the reading unfold naturally? And when you can do that, that is when the magic happens. Because again, you're not assuming anything about them. You're not assuming that you're going to have to do the work for them and make the story make sense for them. No, you're trusting the people in spirit to come forward and tell you what they want you to share. And they're going to make it make sense in an order that makes sense to them, not to you. The reading's not about you. Mediumship's not about you, right? And so when you can do that, when you can trust the unfolding and trust the process, you're in another stage of your development where you're trusting spirit. The other thing that's so important is not needing validation, not needing positive feedback or reassurance, or knowing that the client thinks you're so good. It cannot be about you. There's really a difference in being a genuine and being an embodied medium. An embodied medium does not need every reading to prove something, because if you're trying to prove something, you're trying to validate, right? The proving comes through what your client is experiencing. And getting overly attached to praise, or equally overly attached to criticism, means that you are still in a healing process around your worth, your abilities, your why you're being called. And one of the ways that I kind of get through this, and I did learn this from someone else said it first, and I heard it, and I can't remember who it was, but it was a woman. She said that she gives herself 10 minutes after every reading to feel the feelings about the reading. And I do the same thing, except I only give myself 5 minutes. I give myself 5 minutes to be like, oh my God, that was amazing. Or, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Or, oh, I wish like that was good, but I wish I had gotten more. Or whatever it is, whatever my thoughts are, whatever my feelings are, and then I move on. Because I do not want to get attached to any level of praise for doing what I do, in the same way that I don't want to be attached to the story that's coming out or the picture that's being painted. It's the weirdest thing, you guys. When I do readings for people, I don't remember 85% of it afterwards. And sadly, because of that, I don't remember 85% of the faces that I've read for. If I saw clients that I had read for a month ago on the street, most of the time, unless we've talked outside of a mediumship reading, I won't remember them because I'm channeling. Like, I am not there in my full consciousness. My consciousness is with people in spirit and then being the messenger. And the reading, truly, when you're embodied in your mediumship, is not about you at all. And so after the reading, as a medium, I give myself 5 minutes. That's it. And in that 5 minutes, sometimes I call my husband and I'm like, oh my God, I just had this so powerful reading, and I just need to share like how strongly like I felt this person in spirit, and it was just so beautiful. And then I'm done. I don't say anything about the reading because it's confidential, but sometimes I just have to say, like, I feel like, I'm floating on air. Other times, like, I feel exhausted. It's always different, but the spirit world doesn't need me to be perfect. They need me to be there and present and not judging them. And I guess that's kind of my final thought, is like that the best readings happen when we become less concerned with who we are and who our clients are and who the people in spirit are, and that we're just willing to be that channel for them. And it's kind of a cheesy thing to say, but I do talk in my mind a lot about being like a blade of grass, and the blade of grass moving in the wind. And, spirit moves through us, especially when we stop trying so hard to be somebody or to experience some things, and we just allow ourselves to meet the wind and to just receive it as it is. And yeah, I just wanted to share some of these thoughts about mediumship that have been coming up to me through my life and like how I'm feeling about life. And yeah, those things have been going on. And yeah, so thank you for listening, and I hope it helps. And sending you guys all love. It's harder for me to podcast in the summertime because, I get distracted by kids not being in school. But I'm hoping to keep these coming. And, summer here in Colorado is not that long. I also just want to say that one last thing that I've been doing as a practice is when I start feeling really heavy in the world, I just offer the world all of my love. And it makes me feel whole again. So, sending you all my love. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Spirit Portal. If you like this episode, please help me grow, share it with your friends, and have a beautiful day.